11:45, my father announced, tapping the glass of his brand new Rolex. I told you. She is a golden retriever. I snap my fingers, and she comes running. He was not dying. He was not clutching his chest. He was sitting in his leather armchair, holding a glass of Pinot Noir, laughing with his golf buddies. I stood in the doorway, chest heaving, my shirt stuck to my back from the sprint. I had just flown 4 hours, driven another 2, and missed the biggest interview of my career because my mother screamed massive heart attack into the phone. "Pay up, Bob." My father laughed, not even looking at me. His friend let out a low whistle and tossed a thick stack of $100 bills onto the coffee table. My father grinned. He reached into the winner's pile. But he did not take 100. He peeled off a single, dirty $20 bill. He flicked it. The bill fluttered through the air and landed on the Persian rug, right on top of my muddy sneaker. "Gas money, kid," he said, taking a sip of his wine. "Thanks for helping me win the watch." I swallowed the scream rising in my throat. I stared at the dirty $20 bill on the Persian rug, and a strange, cold clarity washed over me. The daughter who wanted their love died in that second. The auditor was born. I bent down. My fingers brushed the wool of the rug as I picked up the bill. I smoothed out the wrinkles, folded it into a sharp, perfect square, and slid it into my pocket. I looked at Randall. I did not glare. I looked at him the way a coroner looks at a corpse, clinical, detached, noting the cause of death. Then I turned my back on the crystal, the wine, and the laughter, and walked out into the night. That silence cost them everything. 5 years is a long time to stay quiet. For my sister, Diana, 5 years was a party. 6 months after I left, Randall bought her a custom Range Rover autobiography. $90,000. Cream leather seats, massage functions, and a bow the size of a beach ball. She posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Daddy loves me." I liked the post. While she was driving a tank she could not afford to gas up, I was living in a closet-sized apartment, eating instant noodles 3 times a day. My furniture was a mattress on the floor and a stack of textbooks on trust law and forensic accounting. I was not suffering. I was sharpening. Diana played influencer. She maxed out 3 credit cards trying to launch a swimwear line that never shipped a single bikini. She took out high-interest personal loans to fund trips to Dubai and Tulum, convinced that exposure would pay the bills. By year 4, the repo men were circling her driveway like sharks. Her debt had ballooned to $250,000. I watched it all. I founded a crisis management and asset valuation firm. My clients were CEOs and politicians, people who needed problems to disappear. I learned how to hide money, how to find money, and exactly how to legally crush someone who owed it. By the time I turned 26, my firm was valued at $12 million. I had an office with a view of the skyline and a team of lawyers who feared me. But I kept a separate file on my laptop. A simple spreadsheet titled The Wager. Every dollar Randall wasted on Diana went into the ledger. Every loan Pamela co-signed went into the ledger. I tracked their credit scores, their mortgage payments, and their gambling losses. I knew they were drowning months before they admitted it to themselves. I sat in my glass-walled office, refreshing the spreadsheet. Their liquidity was drying up. The banks were calling. I waited. The phone rang at 11:45 at night. Right on schedule. My phone vibrated against the glass of my desk, buzzing like an angry hornet. The screen flashed a name I had not seen in 5 years. Mother. I let it ring 3 times. Then I slid my thumb across the screen. They are taking the house. No hello. No apologies. Just panic. Raw and ugly. Diana made a mistake. Pamela's voice cracked. A small misunderstanding with some lenders. They say they are going to foreclose. You have to fix it, Rati. We know you have money now. You need to come home. It was not a request. It was a summons. They still thought they owned me. I drove back to the house the next morning. But I did not park a rental car down the street this time. I pulled into the driveway in my company sedan, wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than their mortgage payments. The house smelled of stale lavender and desperation. Randall was pacing the living room, kicking at piles of ominous red envelopes scattered on the floor. Diana was curled up on the sofa, sobbing into a silk cushion, looking less like a victim and more like a child whose toy had been snatched away. "It is the banks," Randall spat, not even looking at me. "Predatory bastards. They targeted her because she is young. She spent $250,000 on clothes and vacations." "Randall," I said, my voice flat. "That is not predatory. That is math." He stopped pacing and glared at me. "Are you here to lecture us? Or are you here to help the family?" "I am here to close a deal." I sat down at the head of the table, his chair, and spread the files out. "I can pay off Diana's debt today. I can make the sharks go away." Pamela let out a breath that sounded like a sob. Thank God. I knew you would. But I cut her off. That only solves the debt. The banks are already moving on the house. Your credit score is nuclear winter. If we keep the deed in your name, they will seize it within 30 days. Randall's face went pale. So what? We lose it anyway? Not if we cheat them, I said. I leaned in, lowering my voice to the pitch I reserved for greedy clients. We move the house into a blind family trust. It is an asset protection strategy used by billionaires. Technically, you donate the house to the trust. You do not own it anymore, so the creditors cannot touch it. But practically, you keep the keys. You live here rent-free. The bank chases a ghost, and you stay on the couch. I watched Randall's eyes. I saw the fear vanish, replaced instantly by that familiar, arrogant glint. He did not hear legal protection. He heard loophole. He heard a way to win without paying. And who controls this trust? He asked, narrowing his eyes. I do, I said. On paper. Just to satisfy the auditors. But you will be the beneficiary. It is your house, Dad. I am just the firewall. He looked at Pamela. He looked at the red notices on the floor. Then he looked at me and grinned. Smart, he said. I always knew you had my brain. He had no idea. The conference room in my downtown office smelled of lemon polish and billable hours. It was a cold, sterile space, designed to intimidate glass walls, chrome accents, and a view of the city that made people on the sidewalk look like ants. Randall did not look intimidated. He looked like he was pulling off the heist of the century. He sat at the head of the mahogany table, spinning a heavy Mont Blanc pen between his fingers. He was not reading the documents I had stacked in front of him. He was already mentally spending the money he thought he was saving. So, let me get this straight, he said, tapping the thick stack of paper. The bank comes looking for the house. And they find what? Nothing, I said, sliding the first page toward him. They find a trust owned by a third-party administrator. Me. Legally, you are a guest in your own home. You have no assets to seize. It is the ultimate tax shelter. I watched greed wash over his face. It was almost too easy. Narcissists do not vet the people they think they own. He assumed I was doing this for approval. For that pat on the head he denied me 5 years ago. He did not know I was the shark. Sign here, I said, pointing to the bottom of the deed transfer. This moves the title out of your name. The scratch of his pen on the paper sounded like a match being struck. And here, I said, flipping to the trust agreement. This designates me as the trustee with administrative power. He signed with a flourish, grinning at Pamela. See? I told you. We beat them. Then came the kill shot. I turned to the final page, Addendum B. This was the trap. In standard trusts, the beneficiary has rights. In this document, I had inserted a moral hazard clause. It stated clearly, in black and white, if the beneficiary engages in high-risk financial behavior defined as gambling, betting, or unapproved credit inquiries, the trustee assumes 100% liquidation rights immediately to protect the corpus of the trust. Just the standard liability waiver, I said, my voice bored. It keeps the IRS off our backs. Randall did not even glance at the paragraph. He saw the signature line, and he saw his victory. He pressed the pen down so hard, the tip nearly tore the paper. I watched the ink dry. A strange, dark calm settled in my chest. People think revenge is screaming. They think it is slashing tires or throwing drinks. But real revenge, the kind that sticks, is the cruelty of mercy. If I had let the bank take the house, they would have been victims. They could blame the economy, the lenders, the bad luck. But by saving them, by handing them this lifeline, I was giving them the rope. I was not destroying them. I was just removing the safety rails and waiting for their own nature to push them off the ledge. Done, Randall announced, slamming the pen down. When do the creditors stop calling? I gathered the papers, tapping them into a neat stack. I looked him in the eye and smiled a genuine smile. For the first time in years. Today, I said. The house is safe now. Safe for me. 2 weeks. That was the shelf life of Randall's gratitude. I was sitting in my office, reviewing a merger for a tech client, when my phone vibrated against the mahogany desk. It was not a call. It was a push notification from the monitoring account of the trust. Transaction alert, Golden Chip Casino. Amount, $5,000. Status, pending. I stared at the screen. I was not angry. I was not even disappointed. I felt the cold satisfaction of a mathematician watching an equation balance itself out. He could not help himself. He thought the trust was a shield, a magic barrier that made consequences disappear. He forgot that shields work both ways. They keep the world out, but they lock you in. I unlocked my tablet, and tapped the icon for the City Power and Light landlord portal. Since the trust owned the deed, the utilities were in my name. I had set up the account with a single purpose. My finger hovered over the red button. Remote disconnect smart meter. I tapped it. Come on, sent. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked to the elevator. It was time to collect. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house was a black void. Every other home on the street was glowing with warm yellow light, televisions flickering through curtains, but my parents' house looked like a missing tooth in a perfect smile. Dead. Silent. I was not alone. Deputy Miller leaned against his patrol car, the red and blue lights reflecting off the wet pavement. He checked his watch, his face tight with impatience. Ma'am, he said, stepping forward. This is a civil standby. You have 10 minutes to serve the writ and secure the property. If they refuse to vacate, we leave and you file for physical eviction next week. I am not here to drag anyone out. Do you understand? Understood, deputy, I said. 10 minutes is all I need. The front door banged open. Randall stormed out onto the porch, a flashlight beam swinging wildly in his hand. He looked small in the darkness, stripped of his expensive lighting and climate control. Sweat made his forehead shine. What the hell is going on? He screamed, swinging the light toward me. The power is out. The water is off. I called the city, and they said the owner canceled the service. I walked up the driveway, my heels clicking on the concrete. The sound cut through his shouting. That is correct, I said. He froze. The beam of light hit my face, making me squint. You? You did this? Are you insane? I have food in the fridge. I have. You have a gambling problem, Randall. I held up the contract. I did not wave it. I held it steady, like a shield. Clause 4. Section B, I said, my voice cutting through the humid night air. High-risk financial activity triggers immediate liquidation. You spent $5,000 at the Golden Chip tonight. The bank alert came through at 8:14 p.m. It was just a hand of poker, he roared, stepping off the porch. He looked ready to strike me, but then he saw Deputy Miller's hand rest casually on his belt. Randall stopped, his chest heaving. I am your father. You tricked me. You set me up. I gave you a choice, I said. You chose the cards. Now the house wins. Diana appeared in the doorway behind him, holding her phone up as a flashlight. She looked terrified. Dad? What is happening? I checked my watch. You are trespassing on trust property, I said. You have 8 minutes to grab your essentials and vacate. After that, the deputy files a report for criminal trespassing. You cannot do this. Randall spit, his face purple. Where are we supposed to go? I looked at him. I looked at the man who had thrown $20 at my feet, and laughed. I do not know, I said. But you cannot stay here. The tow truck's amber lights swept across the manicured lawn, the only color left in their world. The house behind them was a black monolith, stripped of power, water, and ownership. Diana sat on her Louis Vuitton suitcase, mascara running down her cheeks, watching the driver hook chains to the axle of the Range Rover. She screamed at him, threatening to sue, but he just chewed his gum and pointed at his clipboard. The lease was in the name of the trust, and the trust had ordered a repossession. Randall leaned against the mailbox, looking like a deflated balloon. The arrogance was gone. The bluster was gone. He was just an old man standing on a curb, realizing that the loophole he signed was a noose. I walked over to him. The gravel crunched under my heels, a sharp, deliberate sound in the quiet neighborhood. He looked up at me. His eyes were red. You took everything, he whispered. The house, the car. You left us with nothing. I left you with exactly what you gave me, I said. I reached into my blazer pocket. My fingers brushed against the plastic sleeve I had carried for 5 years. I pulled out the $20 bill. It was still wrinkled, still dirty, preserving the shape of his disrespect perfectly. I stepped close to him. I tucked the bill into the breast pocket of his polo shirt, patting it flat against his chest. Bus fare to the motel, I said. Keep the change. I turned my back on them for the last time. I got into my car, the leather seat cool against my back, and locked the doors. As I pulled away, watching their shrinking figures in the rearview mirror, I tapped the contact for my lawyer on the dashboard screen. It is done, I said. File Form 211. The house was not the endgame. It was the bait. By paying off Diana's debt and transferring the deed, I had created a paper trail that could not be erased. The blind trust documents proved Randall had been hiding assets. My payments to Diana's creditors proved they had been accepting massive gifts without declaring them. I had not just evicted them. I had handed the IRS a signed confession of 10 years of income concealment and gift tax evasion. Form 211 is the whistleblower application. They were worried about being homeless. They should have been worried about being indicted. The federal investigation took 8 months. When the IRS Criminal Investigation Division moves, they do not sprint, they suffocate. They started with the trust documents I provided, then expanded to Randall's bank accounts, then his gambling records, and finally, the offshore accounts where he had been hiding income for a decade. The indictment came down on a Tuesday. Randall was charged with 5 counts of tax evasion and 1 count of wire fraud. The defense tried to argue that he was a victim of a complex financial scheme orchestrated by his estranged daughter. But the paperwork told a different story. His signature was on everything. The blind trust I created was legally sound. His violation of it was voluntary. The judge sentenced him to 36 months in a federal correctional institution. The court also ordered restitution of $412,000 in back taxes and penalties. Diana fared differently. She avoided prison, but she could not avoid the math. With no income, no assets, and $250,000 in debt, she filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The court seized everything she had left: her designer bags, her jewelry, even the electronics she used to post her fake life online. She moved into a 1-bedroom apartment with a roommate she found on Craigslist. The country club where Randall had bet on my loyalty revoked his membership 3 days after the arrest. The friends who had toasted his new Rolex stopped returning his calls. His reputation evaporated faster than his net worth. 6 months after the sentencing, a letter arrived at my office. The envelope was stamped with the seal of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I sat in my chair, the city skyline glowing amber behind me, and slid it open. The handwriting was shaky, stripped of the arrogant flourish I remembered. "I forgive you," it read. "I know you were hurt, but family sticks together. When I get out, we can rebuild. I am still your father." I sat with those words for a long time. A younger version of me might have felt guilt. A younger version might have felt rage. But as I traced the loop of his letters, I realized I felt something far more powerful. Indifference. I did not burn the letter. I did not frame it. I simply dropped it into the shredder. The machine whirred for 2 seconds, turning his manipulation into confetti. I did not reply. Silence is the only language a narcissist understands, even if they cannot speak it. That evening, I went to dinner. Not alone. I sat at a long wooden table surrounded by my team, the lawyers, the analysts, and the friends who had seen me eating instant noodles 5 years ago and never looked down on me. We passed plates of food and bottles of wine. The laughter in the room was loud, messy, and real. There was no walking on eggshells. There were no hidden wagers. No one was keeping score. I looked at them and realized that I had not lost a family. I had simply pruned a dead branch so the rest of the tree could grow. If you are watching this, and you feel the weight of a debt you never signed up for, I want you to listen to me closely. I survived, but I had to learn 3 rules to get here. Rule number 1. The loyalty tax. Stop paying taxes to people who do not represent you. Toxic families rely on the idea that blood is thicker than water to exploit you. They believe your time, your money, and your sanity belong to them simply because you share DNA. That is not love. That is a hostage situation. If you have to shrink yourself to fit inside your house, you are in a cult, not a home. Rule number 2. Weaponized incompetence. My sister Diana was not helpless. She was strategically useless. She refused to learn how to survive because she knew someone else would always save her. By fixing her messes for years, I was not helping her. I was crippling her. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for a parasite is to remove the host. Let them hit the floor. It is the only place where they can learn to stand. Rule number 3. The power of the ledger. Keep receipts. I do not mean just financial ones. Keep track of the insults, the flaked plans, the cruel jokes, and the moments they made you feel small. Gaslighting works because it relies on your bad memory. Write it down. Look at the data. When they tell you that you are crazy or overreacting, look at your ledger. The numbers do not lie. I spent $250,000 to buy my freedom. It was a bargain. My name is Rati. I walked away from a table where I was being served scraps, and I built my own banquet. Who is betting on your silence today? And are you brave enough to finally cash out?